Everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. We're going through each division one by one in the summer betting series of the NFL divisions. We've done the AFC West, we've done the NFC West, we've done the AFC North, and today we're going to hit on the NFC East with a friend of the program, the Ringers. Raheem Palmer comes back. He's been on this show multiple times. Raheem, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always an honor to work with you. I think last time I was here, we were doing some basketball. So, time is flying, got the NFL season on the horizon. So I'm super excited.
Last time you were here, you said Knicks in 5, and lo and behold, the Knicks 1-5. So this guy, Nostradamus, knows what he's talking about. He's going to break down the entire NFC East, all odds, futures, player props, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Like I said, we've had this entire series. We've done a couple divisions. We got Joe DeLeon coming on Thursday talking about college football, and we'll have Chris Felica in a couple of weeks. The Bear will be on talking about football. We got Adam Kaufman and AFC East. We have all the divisions covered. Raheem and I are going to break down the NFC East today. So we're going to start with the Eagles. They've won the division back-to-back years. That's the first time that's happened in that division in over 20 years. You don't see back-to-back division champs often in that division. Win total is 9.5 at FanDuel, minus 160. Favored to the over, plus 135 to the under. 10.5 is a price you can get as well. They're at FanDuel at plus money at 110, minus 130 to the under. They're the favorite to win the East again at plus 115, plus 850 to win the NFC. That's the third favorite behind the Rams and Seahawks in the West. And they're 17-1 to win the Super Bowl. Raheem, as you assess this Eagles team 2 years away from winning the Super Bowl, what do you like or not like about this Eagles team?
Well, me personally, I look at this Eagles team and I see a team that's carried by their defense. We know that they have a high defensive floor. It's so interesting because if you're a fan of Football Outsiders, the one thing that they've consistently told us is that defense is not consistent year to year. So if you're able to put together a solid offense, you should be solid. But this Eagles offense is not good at all. And I don't see it getting better. You're looking at a team right now and they're trending downwards. If you go back to 2023, they were 7th in offensive EPA per play. 2024, they were 6th in offensive EPA per play. Last year, they were 16th. And it just doesn't feel like they're going to get better. Obviously, you lose A.J. Brown, you trade him, and you draft Mekhi Lemon. And now you got Devonta Smith. You kind of have to slide him to the number 1 position. And I don't know if that's going to be ideal for this offense. So you look at Saquon Barkley. This is a guy who he has a ton of tread on the tires. So, you had some regression last year. This is an offense that was super healthy last year. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, they didn't miss any games. And then A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert, they only missed 1 game. So if you have an offense that I don't know if it's really going to improve very much, and then, you're probably going to have to factor in some injuries. And then the offensive line, it's been a strength for this team, but they are getting older. So I actually like the under on this Eagles team. I just think the offense is not going to be able to carry them. I think the division is a little bit better. So I'm taking the under.
You're going under 10.5. Now, we'll get to our best bets on this team in a few minutes. Does it matter to you that they changed another offensive coordinator? They've had a million in the last couple of years. Like every year, Jalen Hurts has a new one. Obviously, they needed to get rid of last year's. Sean Mannion comes over from Green Bay, more under center snaps for Jalen Hurts this year. Obviously, getting used to a new offense. You lose A.J. Brown. You trade him away. They didn't want to deal with him anymore. Do you see Devontae Smith stepping up? Do you see Barkley rebounding a little bit? And I'll get to that in my best bet in a few minutes. Do you see this Eagles offense getting any better with the new offensive coordinator?
I actually think it could probably get worse. I think A.J. Brown is such a huge loss. I don't know. I know they were rough last year, but I don't know if people are factoring in how good A.J. Brown was and how much of a difference maker he was to this offense. I truly don't believe that. He was the security blanket. And if you look at, the starts with Hurts and no A.J. Brown, these are some of the worst games of his career. So I actually think they get a little worse. I do think the defense is going to be the strength for this team, but it wouldn't surprise me if we completely see the wheels of this offense completely fall off. And we're talking about, I mean, Philly's a tough place to play in. At what point do you hear, all right, we need to go to Tanner McKee, or we need to trade Jalen Hurts? I mean, because those are things that are possible if, like, they're not playing well. So I feel like this offense is going to fall off.
No, and that's what happens in Philadelphia. I remember 2 years ago at the Super Bowl, I covered their Super Bowl win over the Chiefs, and their head coach was at the podium after the game, Sirianni. And, it was the typical Super Bowl questions that were up there. And I had to break in. I said, listen, you came off a season the year before where they lost 5 of their last 6 games and were eliminated in the first round by Green Bay. And then you started 2-2 the year that year. I said, how did you handle the crickets and the crickets? How did you handle the noise and the criticisms of you collapsed in 2023 and you started 2-2 in 2024, and they rebounded to win the Super Bowl. So Sirianni and company did the magic then, but you're looking at this team as falling off further. So if I were to ask you, Raheem, is this team closer to the Super Bowl team of 2 years ago or closer to the team that kind of just survived last year and lost in the first round in San Francisco? Which side are you leaning towards?
I think it's closer to the one that survived. I don't see this being a Super Bowl caliber team. I don't. I think the defense is Super Bowl caliber, but I don't think the offense is at all. And
so no value in the 17-1 or the 850 to win the NFC. And obviously we're going to get into the Cowboys in a minute. We'll figure out what we think for this division. Philadelphia Eagles, your best bet, odds, futures, player props. Where are you headed with this team?
I'm headed to the under 10.5 wins. I look at this roster and I see a very solid defense. I mean, probably one of the best defenses in the NFL. It's definitely top 5, but I just don't think the offense is there and where it needs to be. And if you look at the schedule, obviously you start off with a division game at Washington, then you're on the road at Tennessee and Chicago, but then you play the Rams, and then you got to go to Jackson. I mean, then you got to go to London to play Jacksonville. And right after, going to London to play Jacksonville, you get a rested Carolina team. And you could look at that game and say, all right, yeah, sweet, it's just Carolina. But the fact that you're coming off of a London game, you have to play a rested team. And then the following week, you got to play Dallas. I just think people are looking at the schedule and they'll say it's easy, but it's tougher than it looks. So, and then, towards the end of the year, the wheels could really fall off because you got Seattle week 15, Houston week 16, on the road at San Francisco, and in week 18, you got a divisional game against the Giants. Weeks 15 to 17 are tough. So I'm going under 10.5 wins. I know they won 11 games last year, but I felt like they got lucky in some of those, especially like you look at that Rams game. That was ridiculous. You got the Rams were dominating them. So under 10.5 wins, I think this is not going to be a division to where you're going to have somebody winning 12, 13 games.
I was actually on my way down to the Meadowlands for the Sunday night football game between the Chiefs and the Giants, and I was listening to that Rams-Eagles conclusion to that game, and I almost drove off the road thinking I obviously had the Rams plus the number, and not only did they not win, but they didn't cover thanks to that ridiculous play. For me, my best bet, and by the way, we agree on the under 10.5. I'll tell you that I did a Sportsline hit last week where I threaded the needle. I think they win 10 games, which you can bet the over 9.5, or you can bet the under 10.5. They have both options at FanDuel. The schedule is just, I think there are 10 wins out there, but I'm not really invested in the total. What I think I'm going to have is Saquon Barkley number is 1,050 yards and a half at FanDuel. Now, we're not going to 2024 Saquon Barkley, 2,000 rushing yards, 2,300 yards from scrimmage, 15 touchdowns, should have won the MVP. We won't get into that. We're not going to get that Saquon Barkley. But even if you look at the drop-off he had last year, which went all the way down to 4.1 yards per attempt and only 9 touchdowns and only 4 explosive runs, he still had 1,140 yards. So the offseason, the bad down year for Barkley was still 1,140 yards, and this number is sitting here at below that. So I think with Hurts being under center more under the new offense, it'll give Barkley a little bit more touches in terms of getting some more explosion through there as opposed to just doing the read option. Aaron Jones had 13, excuse me, Aaron Jones had 1,300 yards in 2024 under Mannion and nearly 1,000 yards in only 15 games last season. So I think the way that his offense is structured, I'll call it a pseudo bounce back year for Barkley. No, I don't expect 2,000 yards, but I also don't expect under 1,000. So the number sitting there at 1,050, I think it's too low. Your thoughts on that?
I'm not mad at this one. I actually like this one. I really do. I am the only concern I have is that I do think the aging curve can kind of catch up to Saquon Barkley, and you could say the same thing about the offensive line. But I do like this one. I think if he stays healthy, he goes over that. Like, I think that's a good play.
And again, I'm not saying he's going to get 1,500 yards. I'm not saying the offense is back. I kind of agree with you, but I just think 1,000 yards is not hard for Saquon Barkley to get. He might not even play 17 games. I think he gets that. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. You're listening to the Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. He's the Ringers, Raheem Palmer. I'm David Bearman from Betting with Bearman. We're breaking down the NFC East every week. We have another division as part of the summer betting series on the Betting with Bearman podcast. We're going to go to the Dallas Cowboys, where I feel you and I are going to have a couple of good things to say about this Cowboys team. The win total at FanDuel, very similar to what the Eagles have in terms of a couple of different options. You can bet the over 9.5 at plus money, 105 to the over, minus 125 to the under, or you can get it 8.5 and lay some juice at minus 160 to the over. The second favorite to win the division at plus 195, coming in right under $2. 12-1 to win the NFC and 22-1 to win the Super Bowl. Raheem, your thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys this season?
So I am a Cowboys fan. I don't want you guys to think I'm biased because I like this Cowboys team this year. I think the biggest thing.
I took the Dolphins over, as stupid as it sounds, so you can be biased.
I think the biggest thing with this Dallas Cowboys team is that if you look at what they did last year, the offense scored 27.5 points per game, 7th in the NFL. So we know the offense is solid. They have a high floor when you look at an offense with Dak Prescott and George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. Their floor is extremely high. I mean, they were 7th in points, 5th in EPA per play, 8th in EPA per rush, and 7th in EPA per pass. So the offense was there. The problem was the defense. I mean, they gave up 511 points last year. I mean, this defense was awful. 31st in EPA per play on defense, 32nd in points allowed. I mean, when your offense is putting up 27.5 points per game and the defense is allowing 30.1 points per game, you're not going to win many football games. And, they still won. I mean, what did they win? 7 games last year. So, and you got the tie against the Green Bay Packers. So that tells you that the floor for this team with Dak Prescott is very high. Now you come into this year, you draft Caleb Downs, you draft Malachi Lawrence, you trade for Rashawn Gary. You add all of these defensive pieces and you get rid of Matt Eberflus. And I just think the defensive improvement is going to give this team such a high floor that I think they can challenge for the division. And I think they're going to be a playoff contender. So I really like what I see from this Dallas Cowboys team. I can't say that, they're one of the best teams in the NFC and they're better than the Rams or the Seahawks or anything like that. But I think this is a playoff team this year.
And we're going to get to the win total in a second because you and I are both on the win total as our Cowboys best bet. And it's not just this is your team. I actually believe in the Cowboys this year. Call me a sucker because, every year people believe in the Cowboys. I said this last year and I might have been 1 year too soon. I think there's actually value on the Cowboys front. Usually that Cowboys public team, everybody thinks Cowboys is going to be their year and their number's higher than it should be. And you're always like, fade the Cowboys. The number isn't what it is. There's too much liability on it. But I think we've gone the other way because the Cowboys have failed people for so long with the expectations that you're looking at a team with 8.5 wins. You're looking at a team that you can get 2-1 to win the division, which I bet. I actually had it at 225 2 weeks ago when we went on Sportsline. I took them as my division champ because where I said the Eagles under 10.5, but over 9.5. So I have the Eagles at 10 wins. I think the Cowboys will get to it a second, can get to 10 wins. And their schedule isn't the world's hardest schedule. They can get off to a fast start. Like you play the road game at the Giants, opening primetime game as usual. Back-to-back home games at Washington and Baltimore. You get Tampa, Baltimore, San Fran, and Jacksonville all at home. It's a doable schedule. Now, you have the Seahawks and you have the Rams and you have the Lions and a whole bunch of other really good teams. not necessarily thinking 12-1 is a good price for the NFC or 22-1 to win the Super Bowl, but I am going to take them at 2-1 to win the division. I think if healthy, you made all the arguments about their defense getting better. Their offense is as good as anybody in football when healthy. Dak Prescott, when he plays 16 or more games, he's broken 4,400 yards every single season. By the way, that's another number out there. His over-under is 4,000 yards to hit at FanDuel, 3,999.5. When healthy, this guy breaks 4,400 yards every year. So keep an eye on Dak Prescott over 4,000 total passing yards. But Raheem, are you in on them to win the division at 2-1?
I am. I think the Eagles, I think the wheels can fall off from the Eagles offense. And I think the Cowboys, they have a legit shot at winning this division. I think the early season schedules, outside of the first two games, I'm a little concerned about that because obviously you got Baltimore, you got Houston. After you play the Giants and the Commanders, you got Baltimore and Rio, then you got Houston, then Tampa Bay, then Green Bay, then Philly. But I think that Week 7 game against Philly, you could look up and say, all right, yeah, the Cowboys have the division at that point in time. So,
and you look at starting in November, you got the Cardinals, you're at the Colts, you get San Francisco at home, Tennessee at home, Philly at home. Like that's a 5-game stretch. They could win all 5 of those games and take over the division before you go on the road to Seattle entering your bye week. And, you have the Rams and the Seahawks booking end your bye, but then you finish with Jacksonville, New York, and Washington. I think and we'll get into our best bet now because we're talking schedule. Like we both like the over 8.5. It's juiced a little bit to the over at -160. I'm even willing to do the 9.5 at plus money right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, plus 105. Because if you and I are both saying that the Cowboys can win the division, it's going to take 10 wins. So if you want to play it over 9.5, you're getting plus money. But we both like it over 8.5 at -160.
What's the juice on that 9.5?
9.5 is plus 105.
Plus 105. Yeah, I'm gonna take the 8.5 and then play the division. Because the division is what, plus 195 at this point in time?
Plus 195 at FanDuel. I've seen it in certain places in the 200. Just come down recently, but it was as high as 235 a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I think 10 wins probably gets you there, but I like, and it's so crazy. This is the second straight year where I've taken the Cowboys over. Last year, I was able to get the Cowboys over at 6.5 right after they traded Micah Parsons because I felt like Micah Parsons. It's so funny. Everybody talks about him being a top tier defensive player, one of the best in the league. But ultimately, I don't know if he made their defense significantly better. So I thought that trade actually gave me value. And I've always said that Dak Prescott, when he's in the lineup and he's healthy, he probably has a floor of about 8 wins. And that's the floor. And that, it doesn't matter who else is really around him. Now, obviously, they went 7-9-1 last year, but you're right around that 8-win range. And with a better defense, I think this is a gimme. So even laying the -160, I think there's some value there, even laying the juice. So you can go up to 9.5, but I think over 61% of the time, they're going over 8.5 wins. So
technically speaking, at FanDuel, you can escalate it all the way up. You can play the ladder and go 10.5, 11.5, 12.5 if you're really in on the Cowboys. We're not going to go there just yet. We like the over 8.5. At -160. That's the top of the division. The Eagles, the Cowboys, the two teams that we both think are going to compete for the NFC East title and playoff spots. You're listening to the Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. He's the Ringer's Raheem Palmer. I'm David Bearman. We continue our summer betting series around the NFL. Normally, I'd go to the Giants next, to the Commanders next, because that's who was next in the odds board. But that has switched over the last week to week and a half, because the last time we previewed the NFC East for a different network, the Commanders were third in the division, but it has recently switched. Odds have increased. We'll get to the Commanders in a minute. The Giants win total currently at 7.5 plus 100 at FanDuel to the over, -120 to the under. That's kind of the consensus line at 7.5. 550 to win the NFC East, 33-1 to win the NFC, and 60-1 to win the Super Bowl. You got John Harbaugh in there this year. Dabo's out, Harbaugh's in. Your thoughts on the Giants entering the season?
So you look at the metrics of this Giants team. This is a team that went 4-13 last year. Pythagorean expectation of about 7 wins. So I think a lot of people are going to look at that and the fact that they had a ton of unlucky losses last year. I mean, you go back to that Denver game. I don't know what that was. You go back to like some of those losses that they had last year were just so heartbreaking and just bad luck that I think you're going to have a lot of people who jump on the Giants this year and say, you know what, they underperformed their price tag. I'm just going to blindly bet this, but I can't get there. Like I really can't at all. Like I think you have a quarterback who is basically a walking concussion. I mean, he's kind of like the Ja Morant of the NFL. Now I know the NFL has a ton of injuries, but I mean, you look at Ja Morant. This is a guy who just throws caution to the wind, and I think Jackson Dart does the same. So that's a concern for me. But then also, I think they're pricing in the fact that Harbaugh is here with the Giants, and maybe he is an improvement, but I'm not sure if I'm buying it. I think Harbaugh the last couple of years has kind of just lived off of the fact that Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and Baltimore is probably the best organization in football. Now, I know they haven't broken through in quite a while, but the Baltimore Ravens organization is much better than this New York Giants organization in terms of drafting, in terms of signing free agents, and I don't see the talent on this roster from the Giants. So I think you're in a tough NFC East. I just don't see it. So I mean, you got the Rams, the Eagles, the Lions, the Texans, and the Seahawks all on the road this year. And you have a quarterback who we can't trust to stay healthy. You start the season off with Dallas, then you're on the road at the Rams. That's probably 0-2 right away.
You might as well have the viewpoint of my computer and my notes that I have in front of me. You basically said everything I was going to say. You mentioned Harbaugh, and this was the main point that I've been making. You know where I live? I live in Connecticut, the New England, New York Giants, Patriots, Jets area. I know just as many Giant fans as I know Patriot fans. I've said to them, congratulations on getting John Harbaugh. You know, I kind of was hoping he'd go to Miami, but congrats. But you hit it on the head. He had a much, much, much better Baltimore team last year and only won 8 games. So it's not apples to apples, but the John Harbaugh effect, if he couldn't take that Baltimore team to more than 8 wins last year, why do we think he's going to take a worse off Giants team with a walking concussion, as you said, at quarterback and a running back who likes to break himself doing backflips into 8 wins? Because that's the number is 7.5. And we're going to get to our best bet in a second. This team is nowhere close to that Ravens team. Now, the Ravens team obviously underachieved, and they should have won 10 or 11 games and won the division, but they have underachieved for years, which is why Harbaugh is no longer there. So Harbaugh's the name may be bigger than Harbaugh, the actual talented coach, because if you can't win 8-9 games with that Baltimore team, what makes you think you can win 8 with this Giants team? And you said the schedule, like they have road trips to LA, Houston, Philly, Indy, Seattle, Detroit, and Dallas. Now, they do have some easy games, Tennessee, Arizona, Washington, New Orleans, and Cleveland. You'd have to sweep all of those, all 5 of those, Tennessee, Arizona, Washington, New Orleans, and Cleveland. You'd have to sweep them and win 3 more games, with the list being LA, Houston, Philly, Indy, Seattle, Detroit, and Dallas. I don't see it either. I'm with you, which brings us to our Giants best bet, which, if you haven't been able to tell, is under 7.5 wins. Am I right, Raheem?
Yes, without a doubt. Under 7.5 wins is the best bet for the Giants. I really love this one. And I think like I'm just looking at this team and I just don't see it. And I know there's going to be a lot of people on the Giants over. And I think, interestingly enough, I think they've already priced in the bad luck. They've totally priced in the bad luck, because it's just like that's how efficient this market is at this point in time. Because you look at a team who probably should have won 7 games and they opened the market at 7.5. So I'm going under here.
I'm under as well. One of the player props I was looking at is Jackson Dart. His number is 3,150.5 passing yards. Unlike Dak, where we've seen at least 7 seasons of playing the entire year, we haven't seen that with Dart. We've talked about he's a walking concussion. Maybe Harbaugh and Nagy change his way, but it's not like Lamar Jackson stayed healthy under Harbaugh. Even if you throw the injuries out of the way, he averaged 189 yards per game in his 12 starts last year. The Giants had injuries, etc. 189 yards in 12 starts. You project that over 17 games. That's 3,200. That's the number. And that's with a full season games, which Jackson Dart's not going to play. So he would have to do two things. He'd have to increase his average yards per game. And again, Malik Neighbors is injured. Not sure when he's going to be back. And he'd have to play all 17 games. I'm betting against both of those happening, and I'm going to go under 3,150 yards for Jackson Dart. You're listening to the Betting with Bearman podcast presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. We've done Eagles. We've done Cowboys. We've done Giants. Raheem Palmer from the Ringers with us. We're going to close with the Washington Commanders. Their numbers have increasingly gone up over the last couple of days with injuries, etc. Win total 6.5, minus 140 to the over, plus 120 to the under. Winning the division plus 650, winning the conference 35-1, and the Super Bowl jumped from 60 to 80 in the last couple of days. The question I want to ask you, Raheem, is this Commanders team closer to the team that lost the NFC title game 2 years ago, or closer to the team that won 5 games last year?
Ooh, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, and I think it depends on if Jayden Daniels can stay healthy. I think that's a big thing, but right now you already have a major injury to the Commanders already because Laramie Tunsil is out for the season. You lose your left tackle and you're out for the year. And then I think the biggest thing is that you look at this Commanders. We talk about the Cowboys defense. The Commanders defense was absolutely abysmal. So I'm not sure how this Commanders team is going to get back to where they were, 2 years ago when they were in the NFC Championship game. So, and I'm really concerned about this team doing anything. And then they have a brutal schedule. I mean, absolutely brutal. I mean, the first 3 weeks of the year, you're at Philly, at Dallas, and then you got to play Seattle. Then you got to fly to London to play Indianapolis before coming back to playing the Giants in San Francisco. So I think this team, I know I said it's somewhere in the middle. It's definitely closer to last year.
Yeah, they go from LA to home versus the Giants to a road game in San Francisco. It's not the easiest travel schedule in the world. You mentioned Tunsil. That's the reason the number has shifted. The Commanders were third in the division and their Super Bowl odds were 60. You don't see offensive linemen move the needle that much, but your big tackle goes out for the year. It did move the needle. Now we're talking difference between third place and fourth place. I'm with you. I'm not that high on the Commanders. I think their schedule's tough. I would play the under 6.5 before I play the over 6.5. But we're going to go to the prop market for our best bets with the Commanders. Raheem, you go first.
Okay, I'm going to – I kind of look at this Commanders team, and they could be very similar to almost like the Jameis Winston Tampa Bay Buccaneers teams, to where you just have a gunslinger and a very, very bad defense. And – ultimately, that means that your quarterback is playing from behind. So I'm going to go Jayden Daniels over 3,200.5 passing yards. And I think you can escalate this on FanDuel. They have the player milestones. You can get 3,500 passing yards at plus 160. You get 4,000 passing yards at plus 500. If you look at Jayden Daniels throughout his career, I mean, he's already thrown for 3,500 yards. And I think he has a worse defense this year, as well as last year. I mean, we know he didn't stay healthy last year, but I think if he had stayed healthy, I mean, he probably would have met this milestone. So I think you're kind of ahead of the curve if you just play all of these.
So he's doing escalators with Jayden Daniels, which you can do at the FanDuel Sportsbook. And in correlation with that, I think Scary Terry McLaurin over 900.5 receiving yards is where I'm going. Sure, you could be battling father time with the soon-to-be 31-year-old, but I think 900 yards is just too low. He had a rough year last year, only played 10 games. Jayden Daniels missed time as well. But the previous 7 seasons were all over 1,000 yards. He had 1,000 yards in all of those seasons, even in 2019 and 2020 when he only played 14 and 15 games. Now, you can't project him to play all 17. But even though he did that every year from 2021 to 25, but even at last year's career low numbers at 58.2 yards, he would only need 15 games with Jayden Daniels healthy to hit 900. I think he's closer to 65 yards per game that he had in 2024 with Daniels' rookie season than 58 of last year. So if you just tick it up from his career low last year and he plays more than 15 games, you're going to get over 900. Obviously, you can't predict injuries, but I'm going to be going over 900.5 yards for scary Terry McLaurin as my best bet, while you're going Jalen Daniels over 3,200 yards and escalating for your best bet.
Yeah, and I think, a good thing here is they did add Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
So, he has another weapon to play with along with Terry McLaurin. So I just think this is going to be a team that's going to find themselves in shootouts. And I think, throughout the course of the year, you could probably play a lot of overs. Like there's always that one team every year to where they have a bad defense and a solid offense, and you could just play them over every week. I think that's going to be the Commanders this year. So.
And they've never figured out their defense. Even when they went to the NFC title game, they gave up 1 million points to the Eagles. So the defense just has never been good in Washington, while the offense has struggled with injuries. Maybe they come back this year, but not a lot of wins on that schedule. But you're right, play a lot of overs. To recap our NFC East best bets, Raheem is on the under 10.5 with the Eagles, while I am on over Saquon Barkley, 1,050.5 yards. For the Cowboys, we're both on over 8.5 wins, and we're playing them to win the division at plus 195. The Giants, both under 7.5 wins. I also like Jackson Dart not to get 3,150 yards. And for the Washington Commanders, Raheem loves Jalen Daniels over 3,200 and escalators higher with plus money. And I'm on Terry McLaurin over 900.5 yards. That's our NFC East betting preview. Raheem, always love having you on the show. We're going to try to get you on regularly during the football season. We're going to work out that later. Where can people find you right now, your work on the Ringer and in the socials?
Yeah, you can find me on the Ringer Gambling Show. We're now on Twitch, and we're also on Spotify. You can check us on the Spotify feed. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram. I am Rostradamus. I'm going to be launching something soon. I haven't done a lot of NBA work with the Ringer. I've done some, but I'm launching something, and I'm going to be writing up all my NBA win totals this year. So you're going to be able to get that content from me. But NFL season is here.
Awesome NBA content, and surprisingly, we all woke up this morning to LeBron and the Sixers playing the Knicks opening night. Who could have ever seen that?
Oh, wow. They just announced it?
Yeah, that's right. You're on the West Coast. You probably didn't see it. Yeah. LeBron versus the Knicks opening night. Who could have predicted that one? So,
that's a good one.
By the way, he plays the Lakers on Christmas Day, but you're going to go enjoy looking at the NBA schedule this morning. Raheem getting up bright and early to join us on the Betting with Bearman podcast, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make sure you come back on Thursday. We have Joe DeLeon, Believe podcast, to break down college football futures and win totals. We're going to have Raheem back on during the season. That's your NFC East betting preview. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, write a review. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For Raheem Palmer, I'm David Bearman. Enjoy the NFC East.